just go ahead and take roll. Jeff, your willingness to come and meet with us. Trusting everyone has had some time to review the minutes when they were. All in favor?
Okay. Of course,
already on their campus. So what they're asking is to essentially access funding through the Secondary Technical Center. But those 3 programs, which is CAD, medical, and something else, already exist on their campus. Then they're asking to add a program at a new satellite at the Air Force Base for welding. And so ASU CERC then would be overseeing all of the programs, but there's only one program add here. So that's kind of where we are. And I'll let ASU CERC get up, everybody, and introduce yourselves and make a pitch.
My name is Mike Dingler, and I'm the Career Center Director at the ASUBB Searcy campus. With me today is Dr. Blake Perkins. He's the Vice Chancellor of Academics. I have Ashley Hankins. She's the Associate Director of Early College, which Career Center is your early college, maybe. And Dr. Wiedmeyer, who's the Dean of Career Technical Education. I also have Dr. Amanda Picard, who is the Curriculum Coordinator Director for the Jacksonville School District. And I have Michael Vincent, who's the CTE Coordinator for the Jacksonville Pulaski School District.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much for hosting us today, for letting us come in and present to you. I know some of you are on the board. Senator English does a wonderful job for Career Tech, I know. She doesn't know who I am probably per se, but I know who she is. So thank you for that, and thank you for all that y'all all do for Career Technical, for our business and industry partners, and for our kiddos. So basically, I'm the type of person, and Dr. Wiedmeyer, my boss, gets a little nervous when I do this, but I'm a person that thinks outside the box. I'm always trying to come up with ways to serve schools, serve students, serve our business and industry partners. We've had a relationship with the Jacksonville North Pulaski School District for about 4 or 5 years now. They had a need for students to learn welding. And at the time, if you don't know Jacksonville North Pulaski, they have gone above and beyond trying to serve their community, because they have built 6 brand new schools since 2020, 4 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. A lot of that had to do when North Pulaski came in and they merged, but they also have a U.S. Air Force base that's in their city. And they have people that are stationed there, who work there, who have families, and they're trying to cater to those families too, as well as their existing school and citizens and people who live in that city and surrounding area. So what we have done is we have worked a partnership proposal together for us and for them. They have a need. They have several programs, like this Isaac said, there's 3 that they have on their campus that they teach that are in good standing with the school district. They do not offer concurrent credit with those schools unless you're going the workforce challenge scholarship type route. And then we have an existing location at the Little Rock Air Force Base that ASUBB has been a part of since for the last 60 years. When they built that education building there just outside the front gates of the base, ASUBB was one of about 10 colleges that actually taught classes out of there. And over the years, colleges have pulled out, kind of stepped out of that building. And there's actually only 2 left, and we're lucky to be one of the 2 that are still left. So due to the vacating of classroom space and stuff like that, there is a need to fill that classroom space. I mean, they're heating and cooling the building, they're doing that. So since we have a presence on the base and in that area, in the proposal, we actually, and Ms. Isaac said 1 program, we're actually looking at doing 3 programs. One would be a welding program involving the Air Force Base. We also would look at an EMT program. and looking at a patient care technician, medical profession type program. The Jacksonville High School is actually less than a 5-minute drive to the Air Force Base. So it's very convenient for them. Where in the proposal, it mentions that coming for just the welding program that we have at the Searcy campus, it was about a 40-minute drive for them to get to that campus. So, and Jacksonville has a need, and they reached out to us to service that need. So now there's no high school programs being taught at that Air Force Base building as we speak. We do have college programs being taught at that building that are strictly gen ed pretty much, and college students, base personnel, they take classes there. We do have at other locations, we do have the programs already in place that the high school students are taking, like patient care technician, medical profession, welding, those types of programs. So we would be creating those programs at the Air Force Base for the students to take. And Jacksonville has applied for a grant to purchase welding equipment outright to furnish that lab. So there would be no, and we're not asking for any funds from OSD or anybody. All we're doing is taking existing equipment that we already have and creating those educational opportunities for those high school students at that location. The three programs at the Jacksonville High School campus are staffed, have the equipment they need to teach those programs. Those teachers would still be employees of the Jacksonville School District, but we would, as they teach for the high school or for the career center, we would be involved in oversight, giving the college credit that the students could earn for taking those classes that they're doing all of our other locations at the career center. And also providing a little bit of a financial boost to pay for those salaries and benefit packages for those employees that Jacksonville currently has. So if they're teaching for us and some other executive schools that would be coming to that Jacksonville area for these, we have not only the Jacksonville High School district, we have Jacksonville Lighthouse, which is a charter school that has sent students to the Searcy campus before. I think Cabot would be interested in sending students to the EMT program that we would put in at the Air Force Base, because I know that they tried to do that, I think, the last year or two and have struggled a little bit. Lone Oak School District and Carlisle School District are interested in sending students to any program we have, but especially the welding program that we're putting in place. And then Jeff Sin, who used to be the superintendent at the Lone Oak School District, who is now the superintendent for the Pulaski County Special School District. Of course, he's over Sylvan Hills High School, and they're a 20-minute drive to that location. So there's 5 or 6 schools there that I think would send students that have verbal commitments to do it, and in the process of building commitments from the other schools that they would partake of that opportunity if it's something that they feel like that their students need. So all of this, like I said, is kind of doing something in a different way, as Ms. Isaac said. But with the LEARNS Act and the Access Act being put into law, schools are thinking outside the box. They're trying to figure out how to service their students, how to take care of their students, how to give their students what we need. And we have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do that. And all we're wanting to do is expand that to include additional area school districts. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I would be glad, and excited to entertain any questions that y'all might have about how this, from Ms. Isaacs as well.
One point of clarification.
I'm sorry.
One point of clarification,
Okay.
this board only approves the satellite. So this is the satellite that you guys approve to offer additional programming, then that is what your motion will be. All of the programming will be approved within the Office of Skills Development. And just keep in mind, so the programs that are currently being offered at Jacksonville High School would remain district programs, and I'll just go ahead and say, we will not be approving those programs to add into the funding model, which you'll recall is already tight. What we want to do is create additional opportunities for the students of Jacksonville and Jacksonville Charter and Cabot and Lone Oak and all the places, which would be this welding, possibly EMT. So this board only has to, we want to approve the satellite, which exists in existence. And then within our agency, then we will make the decisions on the individual program.
Of course, that another campus would just, it would just compete within the same pie. Okay,
That's correct.
that's right.
You'll also recall that this board, there's about a $23 million budget through the public school funds for the center enrollments. The last 3 years, the Department of Commerce has had to make up the delta and what that funding is and what the budget from education is. And we were happy to do that because we know that there's great things going on in these centers and students are going directly to employment in many cases. So I don't want to say we should not approve things, but I think we should be strategic where we approve these satellites. And we have an existing, to Mike's point, and I'll play devil's advocate on both sides here. To Mike's point, they're already heating and cooling it. We've got the infrastructure there. We've got Jacksonville High School who is committed, and I know that Mike and his team and Cheryl, they're gonna recruit from other schools. I'm not worried about students coming onto that campus. I'd say the devil's advocate is there are other locations where Jacksonville High School could go. There are other centers. They are further. So you've got UAPTC, you've got Metro, you've got ASU Searcy. So they do have, but it's further. And I understand. So when Danny and I discussed this, I said, I think this, and actually when Mike reached out to me, I said, I'm gonna let my board decide this. So no pressure.
I have a question, Stephanie, since I'm the only person in the room with a welding shirt on. I'd
Okay.
like to know two things. One is, I heard a lot about employer signals from the students and the communities, but I didn't hear you saying about employer partnerships. And then the other part is, I say welding, you say welding, what types of welding and what industries that match to the careers in the area? What does all that look like for details?
Well, as far as the, business and industry partners, we had a meeting with, Toyota, last week. We have a Toyota relationship at our Searcy campus. And Toyota, did a presentation at Jacksonville High School about being a T-Tech program for them as well, involving, and we would also be involved in that T-Tech program. As far as there's several tiers, there's the tier that they presented to them was a smaller tier. And then we're a medium tier, and then there's a higher tier. So there's been articles out in the newspaper recently, the New York Times specifically, where automotive manufacturers are looking for technicians nationwide. 3,000 to 5,000 technicians are needed to hire now. And so that's why Toyota is involved in this. Now, as far as the welding side of it, that's something that I have to get specifics on, welding companies in that area and surrounding areas that would be interested in looking at those students. That would all come into play whenever we go before the Office of Skills Development to have the program approved. So that we have that backing by those district or the industry partners, because obviously there'd have to be advisory committee meetings down there. There's a lot of input from them on what we're teaching. And it's the curriculum that we would be teaching would be similar to the curriculum that we're teaching at Searcy, which is gas metal art, TIG, tungsten, manufacturing, metal fabrication. I want these students to start building stuff. Not just day-to-day welding in a welding booth, doing the same weld over and over and over again until their instructor says their perfect day. I want them to start building stuff in their shops and marketing, grills, trailers. Our welding program up at our Hebrews Ridge campus is making trailers. Our maintenance department at our facility up there is actually had them build a trailer for that, and the students love it. They have a blast, not just, like I said, doing the same thing over and over again. So we're just trying to get them into more thinking independently, putting them in groups, partnering together, working together, creating teams that are working together to accomplish a goal.
I would think that Toyota would also want robotic welding
Yes,
and bring it to a level that maybe isn't competing with local CTE ag programs. That could be an enhanced piece to that, would be something of interest.
As far as industry partners too, Mr. Rogers, we have a huge advisory board for our welding program as it stands now. Wellspun has been a big partner of ours for many years, and they come and recruit twice a year from our welding program as it stands, and so there'll be some to do that. Jacksonville students as well.
Yeah, I agree with your comment. I think your Toyota point of reference is okay, but Toyota is not our customer in Arkansas, so. Well, it's not my customer, it's not Arkansas's customer, so, yeah, so. Contemplation for any electrical, mechanical type programs. We see a lot of welding. We still hear a lot, on other trades.
well, we have the space at the Air Force Base, so I cannot alter the building in any way. Correct. But if the space is there and there's a need for a program of study, I'm not gonna back away from it. So if I find out that somebody in that general vicinity area of that, of northern Pulaski County is interested in that, I'm all about exploring opportunities. We have grown career centers at all three satellite campuses that I oversee, as well as taken on the equipment construction program in the last several years, and I've been there 6 years. So we've doubled the number of students from the time I first started to what we have now. So I'm the type of person that believes if you build it, they will come, and I'm willing to build anything and bring anything in as long as we can pay for it and it's reasonable for the community and the business industry partners.
Any of the campus has been there. It's been over the, correct me if I'm wrong, we just celebrated our 60th anniversary. Is that not correct?
1965.
Yeah, 1965. So it has a good long standing, there at the Air Force Base. And, we at ASUB, we are super proud of our welding program and put a lot of money and interest into it. So, I'm looking forward to it. I know that I talked to Dr. Method the other day, and, Lamanco is a great example. They're in Jacksonville that will be looking for builders. And, I think the location is perfect. That's what I liked about it, is where it's located.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Mr. Ross. I've actually got a Lamanco hook that was built at that facility. They're sitting in my office.
Is that
We went down there for a tour, and I conned them out of giving me one so I could show students, look what you can make, look what you can do, go to work for a company, and this is what you can do. And they got excited about it. I mean, I've been doing this long enough. I've been here longer than Stephanie. So, and I have seen those high school students come to me after they graduated, gone to college, gone on to a career, and came up to me 10, 15, 20 years later, thanked me for what they learned in the career centers that we were involved in. And that's the best feeling ever. They've got wife, they've got husbands, they've got kids, and they're supporting them with those skills that we taught them 20 years earlier.
That's great. I might add to another part of the dynamic here as well is that currently we're serving Jacksonville at the Searcy campus, which about a 40-mile transportation for them there. And our Searcy program, the secondary center is busting at the seams. How many do we have in there? The space is a huge issue. We're out of space on our Searcy campus. There's nowhere else to go. But yeah, we had roll like north of 60 in that.
In the welding program,
Yes.
yes. I think it's closer to 70. Then we've lost probably 20 in semester break, which is typical for a career center. They are pulled from the program to do a makeup class that they need to make for graduation requirements.
Since Jacksonville High School is here, I'm curious if they're part of the academies. Is that correct? You are. And so do any of your students have access to these types of programs through the academies model?
Well, we currently have, for example, one of the ones on the list, CAD. We have that, it is a pathway. So the academies model for us are just the pathways that we choose for CTE. And so we have that, and currently our teacher teaches through BB and gives our kiddos concurrent credit. So we do have these pathways. We do not have welding on campus. So, like I said, like they said, we bus our kiddos to Cersei for that, which is what started this whole thing of us reaching out, because we were sending our kiddos on a bus ride for 45 minutes, and then having to pay a bus driver there all day, then to bring them back. And so that's what actually started the conversation of, hey, how can we get this closer to us? Because we want to send more kids. But to back up to your academy question, there really isn't an overlap, except for it's the same.
Ross, did you have anything you
I
want?
actually took my question, and I was gonna ask what the relationship of you all with the academies of Central Arkansas, because we know they have a lot of established relationships with business and industry. That's a part of their model, is that every pathway they offer and do, they have business partners that support them. And so kind of go to Mike's question, is, the connection there, because I knew when you mentioned the CAD program, that was the one on your campus, but if you mentioned like Pulaski County, we know at Mills High School, which I know would not be somebody you would probably service, but their welding program has had some huge support from Lexicon. And at Sylvan Hills, they have a heavy medical program, so children's, not to the EMT side. I'm just curious if there's had been any conversation or partnership with the Academy of Central Arkansas, or looking with that expansion there, just specifically kind of here in the Little Rock area, metro area, or many of those students that not be serving in other schools as well.
But we had some, when we had our Toyota meeting, the academy were there. And so we, I can't remember the gentleman's name.
Marcus Jewins.
Me and him had an extensive conversation after that meeting was over with, to the point that the Toyota people got tired of waiting in the parking lot and left me. So, I had to catch a ride back. They were gonna meet with me out in the parking lot, and then, so we got into that conversation about opportunities through the academy and that type of stuff too.
And for us, just following up on that, what the academy model does for us, it just helps us recruit those partners. But it doesn't really guide who they are, who they have to be. It's just more of a, come be a part of this, put your name on it.
Needless to say that Dr. Perkins or Dr. Weimar made the comment about Wells Fund. They come to all of our advisory committee meetings. They're at the Little Rock River Fort. They make pipe, everything from 6 inches to 36 inches wide pipe. And you'll see with those students, when you talk about you welding on a piece of pipe that you can actually walk into. And that's, they're looking not only for welders, they're looking for people that can work on forklifts or diesel programs involved with them, as far as being a part of the advisory committee. They've got material or equipment that they use to do their job that needs servicing as well. So we do have industry partners out there. Like I said, we have a very large welding.
If this board approves this, do you have time to get the equipment in place, hire the instructors, and be ready for fall, or are we looking at a spring start?
We'll be ready for fall.
You think you need that, there's no lag time on the equipment or anything
No,
for automotive and welding?
no. And like I said, the automotive, the only equipment that would be added to the existing Toyota program, or the program at Jacksonville, would be the Toyota equipment that would be coming. Some of that actually comes from dealerships too. So it's not where.
And then the welding equipment would be ordered in place?
Yeah, with their grant that they've applied for, that they have very warm and fuzzy feelings that it's going to be approved. And if it, for some reason, it's not approved, we have some excess equipment on the college side that's not being used right now that we could use until we came up with a different game plan.
Ross, is that startup?
Share with this artifact, y'all submitted with us, yeah, I mean, I should probably know that, but I don't.
Okay, well,
Sorry, I don't give it up.
No pressure on you,
No pressure
Ron.
on me, all right?
But in order for this to
Appropriations committee, go
happen. Okay, all right. So, what this board basically, I would say if you decide to add the satellite and approve that today, then we will begin working with ASUBB Cersei to help them establish which programs will be on this new satellite.
I would just return back to the high school and just strongly encourage the partnership and the communication and developing more employers into the picture. That, I think that is geographically a really, really good location to pull from the northern part of the county and you've got it's a straight shot to the Little Rock port, 50 manufacturing companies employing, I think, 10,000 people. So that could really be a good source of career and opportunities. So just want to encourage that engagement with employers. So any other questions or discussion?
I just want to make a comment. Y'all done a beautiful job. It's all so. State of the art, building nice facilities. Something very, very proud.
Have a motion to approve the new satellite campus.
I'll make that motion.
Motion have a second. Second, all approved, say aye. Aye. Approved. Aye. Cool. Appreciate the work you all are doing. Thank you.
I have just summoned my boss, Cody Waits. He's going to do a presentation on our $35.8 million Department of Labor grant that hopefully you've read about obnoxiously in the papers and the press releases. We're paying a lot of money to a PR firm to help us get the word out. I'll go ahead and just before he gets here, he told me to let him know right before and he would run down here. So we got this phone call, I guess in May of 2025. Cody got the phone call from the Department of Labor saying, we have a grant we want to give you. And for apprenticeship, it's manufacturing apprenticeships, and it's around $35 million. And we want to set up a call. And so Cody came down and told me, he said, we're going to set up a call. I said, there's no way we can spend $35 million, even in 4 years. It's just not possible. And when we get on the call, after we got off the call, I said, Cody and I got together and I said, I think that they mean we're going to lead the whole nation. And that's over the $35 million. And sure enough, but that is indeed what happened. And so keep in mind, we're still, my little staff, me and 8 little warriors are always out here doing the workforce skills upskill things. And so we began meeting with them in May, and just like a herd of turtles, we got this thing off in finally in December. And so if you look at this administration's Make America Skilled Again, they want to have 1 million apprentices. And at $35 million, if you've read anything about the grant, it's $3,500 incentive to employers to adopt apprenticeship as a retention and workforce strategy. Well, do the math, 3,500, and 35 million, that's only 10,000 apprentices. But we do think that this is a model, this incentive model is going to be something that this administration, and we really believe in our office. We've really adopted this to say to employers, if you will adopt apprenticeship as a workforce strategy, we think it's great if you didn't get any funding. It's a great retention strategy. It's, strategy because we've got people who want to come to work, but they don't have the skills. So it's an opportunity where you can actually, for those who are already doing it, we're going to reward you with a $3,500 incentive payment per apprentice after a 90-day, after they've been employed 90 days. If you've never tried it, You say, I don't want to fool with the federal government. I don't want to do all the paperwork. This is your incentive to maybe try it and see if it works for you. Currently, help me, Derek. And I just have to say, hats off to Derek Daniels, who, behind the scenes is making a lot of this happen. The last time I looked, we had 50-something applications.
Yeah, it's getting close to 60.
Okay. We have at least 25 states represented by that. It's not simple, it's messy. So we have a list of occupations that you have to be a part of in order to access the fund. And everybody thinks they've got that particular ONET code. So we're finding it's not as easy as we thought it would be, but here he is, the man with the plan. I already keep.
Am I up?
Yeah, you're up,
Oh.
you're up.
Sure.
So I'll turn it over to Cody from here. I've been.
Okay, yeah, well, number one, appreciate everybody being here. Sorry I haven't been able to join. As you can imagine, things are a little busy around commerce today, as most days. Obviously, we've been given the great privilege of administering a $36 million, $35.8 million to be exact, cooperative grant from the U.S. Department of Labor to expand manufacturing registered apprenticeships across the entire United States. It's an honor for us to be able to manage that on behalf of the administration and the U.S. Department of Labor. And something that we are very excited about and have already experienced some interesting requests, but also some very good requests. Just to take a step back, I think we really started talking with DOL around this probably in the fall of 2025, and really starting to understand exactly what the mission was, what the goal was, how the outcomes align, not just with, the administration's, talent strategy for the golden age, but also the governor's workforce strategy, and how Arkansas can help facilitate that. So when you look at the two strategies combined, right, Pillar 1 and Recommendation 1, it talks about industry-led initiatives, and there's really truly no greater led industry initiative than is registered apprenticeship. Obviously, you can't have an apprenticeship if you don't have industry at the table, really leading the conversation around what skills, competencies, knowledge, training has to be involved, but as well as the fact that they're employed from day one when they start. So, obviously we saw it as a win-win for us. We had some very lengthy discussion with our federal counterparts, which I can't say enough about. I think sometimes states will give, some heck to our federal partners, and I think our federal partners will give some back to the states. But, in this scenario, I really felt like it was a really good partnership, really good coordination across the two groups, and how we got ourselves to where we're at today. So, currently, if you go to the Office of Skills Development website, there's a osd./mfgfund.com. Where there's a lot of information. And so we worked with the U.S. Department of Labor to develop a list of frequently asked questions. We obviously worked with them on a number of different things as it relates to abstracts and outlines of what the grant would be and how it would focus. Some of the, conversations, we've done a number of different webinars, both for employers here in the state of Arkansas, thanks to Apprentice League for setting those up, but also with organizations such as Apprenticeships for America, who we did one just with a couple of weeks ago at a national scale. I can't remember exactly how many people were on there and how many states were represented, but it was a big variety of different states and organizations. But it's interesting because one of the questions we keep getting asked is, why the low percentage of funds to support the sponsors? So if you think about registered apprenticeship, for those of you in the room and who may be listening who aren't as familiar with apprenticeship as us, you have to have a sponsor who kind of manages the apprenticeship program. That can be an employer itself. So a lot of times companies will be the sponsor themselves and go through that process and getting registered with the U.S. Department of Labor or through a state apprenticeship agency, which we have proudly submitted our application as of December to transition to an SAA. And so you can either do it yourself or you can go through kind of a group model, such as an Apprentice League or a 2-year college for your university, whoever may be serving as that apprenticeship program sponsor. And so a lot of nonprofits, a lot of NGOs and organizations like that also serve at that at a federal level across a number of different states. And so, this question to us always keeps getting asked, which is, how come there's not more money going to the sponsors, for the administrative overhead in which they operate? And we said, well, very clearly, this really wasn't meant for, program sponsors, right?
Tell them what it is, because I just told them $3,500 per apprentice.
Yeah, well, the incentive is, up to there's $3,500 per apprentice. That an employer can receive as it relates to every apprentice, who is eligible. Once a sponsor applies and is registered and they apply for the grant funds, they at that point in time can register new apprentices, at which, any apprentice that's registered after the date of application is eligible for the company to receive up to a $3,500 per apprentice incentive payment after 90 days of being employed and registered in the Rapids data system, registered apprenticeship information data system. So, we had this conversation with USDOL and ETA around, well, what's the right percentage, right? Because we do know there's some costs shared between a program sponsor who may be managing multiple different companies versus a company who's doing it themselves. And so, we talked, should it be 20% going towards a sponsor? Should it be 10%? And quite honestly, at one point we said, well, maybe 0%. We want the incentive really to go towards companies. This is really to help expand apprenticeships. And yes, program sponsors and organizations who provide technical assistance can help facilitate that. But at the end of the day, it's really the employers who are paying the wages. They're taking the risk on adopting apprenticeship if they're not doing it today, or they're looking to expand it in other areas within their business. And so, ultimately, we landed on 10%. I think there's some folks out there that don't think that's enough. I think it's quite fair. When you look at, what we do with our skills development grants, we cap administrative costs for our 2-year colleges that are in the room who do OSD grants. We cap our administrative costs at 10%. And so that was kind of the methodology behind how we landed on the 10% number. So I've gotten that question a few times when I've done these webinars recently, trying to explain the incentive fund. And so that's a little bit about the logistics of it. Obviously, there's an application portal and an intake form that they'll fill out. Once our team reviews that, which we reviewed, the last number I got, Stephanie may have an updated number, but it was around 50 applications to date. That's probably gone up a little bit since I last got that, but we've already had 25 different states submit applications for the fund. We had one application that requested 16,000 apprentices. I'm not sure what the math on that is, but I think it's more than $35.8 million. Needless to say, that one was denied. So, or perhaps it's not denied, but perhaps we're going to work with them to identify a more reasonable number of apprentices at which they can apply for, assuming they're within the 120 or so occupations that are currently approved. That's another thing, that we've been getting a lot of questions around is, the 120 occupations that we developed as part of this framework. We know that list is going to grow based off the demand and certain requests that employers have. And that was really just a starting point. And so I know that a number of applications to date have been for occupations that aren't included on the 120, but some that certainly fall within the manufacturing, sector, and some that certainly don't. So we're working through the denial process for some, working with program sponsors to help approve that. We've worked with a couple of different groups, MHPSI, who's done some really good work for us as it relates to marketing and branding and getting the word out. We put out some press releases and some other materials such as toolkits for states to use that they can co-brand, right? One of the things that we were cognizant of is if you're a company in Virginia, and we talked with our folks at Virginia Works about this, right? If you're a company in Virginia who's curious about this and you get this branding and marketing outreach from the state of Arkansas, you might kind of wonder what that looks like. And so we created these toolkits that they're going to be able to use and help co-brand to help spread the word. We're doing webinars jointly with some other states. A lot of conversation with manufacturing associations, site selectors, businesses, program sponsors, a lot of different interested parties in the incentive fund. And so that's kind of really where we're at today. I don't know if we've actually approved any yet or how much has been approved.
Tell the number, the percentage of the 35.8 that will go directly to the incentive is 93%. So the state of Arkansas is absorbing a lot of the administrative costs. We want to make sure as much as possible goes directly to these sponsors and employers who are participating. And I'm really proud of that. I mean, I think if you look at a lot of grants, 93% does not go towards the actual programming and the work that's being done. I'm really proud of that. Proud to be a part of the team that can do that.
Could agree more. And I mean, I think that's kind of the, hey, we're not going to ask you to do something we're not willing to do ourselves, right? So, you know, if we're gonna cap your administrative costs at 10% that you can get on the incentive, then we're gonna do our best to stay under the 10% ourselves. And that's inclusive of hiring additional staff. You know, we're gonna hire 2 staff. We're interviewing now for those positions. Some of the contractual stuff we're doing with a group called Submittable that helped us develop the intake portal and the application, MHPSI, local contractor for the marketing and outreach piece. So, you know, it's, you know, one of the things that we was talking about too is if we were sitting in the, you know, the chairs of perhaps some of the other states, right? Like what was information we would want? And so one of the things we're going to be working with our state counterparts on is some sort of reporting mechanism, whether that's monthly, quarterly, to really help them understand what activities taking place in their states as it relates to the incentive fund. And so, you know, we're putting together kind of a spreadsheet of sorts, some documentation as it relates to what companies or what organizations are requesting funds from which states, sharing that information back out with the state directors. Again, you know, if we weren't the ones operating or administering this grant, we would hope that we would have some insight as it relates to the activity that's taking place for companies here in the state of Arkansas, so we can work with them. You know, the other benefit to this is the fact that we can leverage this on top of the existing funds that we have available. You know, Stephanie and OSD and Derek, you know, they have 2.4 million kind of generally for apprenticeship, and then we invest more funding out of the skills development fund to help support apprenticeship expansion. And so for companies around the state, you know, we just had a conversation with Green Bay Packaging last week, and their interest in, you know, we operate an apprenticeship type model, but we're certainly interested in this incentive fund and how we can expand that. Vertical Manufacturing is another company we're working with and having conversations with, who started with just a few apprentices and is really growing that number. Not exactly sure where they're at today, but they're growing that. You know, so it's an opportunity for us to, you know, mitigate the cost and the risk that employers are taking in hiring more staff, putting more people into the apprenticeship model. You know, and I guess the last thing I'll mention is, you know, I think it's, well, 2 more things, right? One is, you know, this is a 4-year grant. You know, the time's running on year 1. Even though we didn't get it announced till December, federal government shut down, all that stuff, right? That is what it is. But, you know, we're excited about where we're at today. And I don't know that it's going to last 4 years. You know, I think that's the sentiment that we share, is that I think there's a lot of excitement and interest around the country with this. If we were able to award a 16,000, you know, apprentice grant, certainly it'd be over with today. But, you know, that's why we in DOL, and I'll give DOL credit to this, right? They kind of had the foresight to say, hey, let's put some parameters around this for the first 6 months. Let's put some, you know, hey, if you're a single employer, you can have up to 100 apprentices in the first time frame. If you're a program sponsor who's working on behalf of a number of employers, right, you can have up to 100 employers by 10 employers. So capping that at 1,000. You know, so I think that was pretty mindful, because we want to make sure that these go not just to big companies who are doing apprenticeship at a national level, but to companies of all sizes, small, medium, as well as large. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll hush and answer any questions, but I just want to give credit to Derek Daniels and his team, as well as Stephanie. They have put countless hours into working with DOL, putting together the framework, the FAQ list, working with Rapids and ONET codes, and all the things that don't always get seen. When you start talking about, you know, what's happening and what's taking place, there's obviously a lot of work that happens behind the scenes, and couldn't be proud of Derek and Stephanie for their work and dedication, not just to what we're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, but also the fact that we're taking on another opportunity to help our partners at the federal level administer a grant fund in coordination with, you know, the talent strategy, the golden age, and the governor's workforce strategy. So thank you, Derek, and thank you, Stephanie, and the entire team at OSD for the work they did. And with that, I'll yield back.
Tony, do you see a bigger opportunity that y'all done such a great job with this, and next time it may be big enough, whatever? Do you see that opportunity where we can employ more people, or we can contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's interesting that you asked that. I think it's really it's the way in which USDOL is now operating their own kind of discretionary grant pot of money. If you look back at how they did it previously, you know, it was, you know, hey, we're going to put out $87 million and it's everybody in the US apply for it. And a lot of times those grant funds would go to some of those technical assistance centers, is what they call them. So a lot of NGOs, a lot of nonprofit organizations would eat up a bunch of that funding. And sure, some states would get funds. We were rarely a beneficiary of some of those dollars. And so, you know, I think their approach to it is, how can we put funds into states that already have infrastructure, that already have mechanisms in place where relationships exist, that they can get this money out and and to Stephanie's point, right, really reduce the size and the scope of the administrative cost of overseeing it. And so I think we're a model for proving that. There's other cooperative agreements out there currently in a couple of other states. I don't know how public all that is, but somebody can certainly look it up. But I think if this model proves itself and we're able to execute on this, I think this is the approach that DOL may take. Moving forward, I think you can see more cooperative agreements. You know, just recently after our announcement, they released, I think, another $147 million in apprenticeship funds, and kind of under this cooperative model where states would apply for it. They would put a big bucket of money out of state to help administer, similar to what we do, but perhaps it's specific to shipbuilding, right? And apprenticeship to support the shipbuilding industry. So I think DOL is kind of really rethinking how they've done their discretionary model than in the past and how it moves forward. And if we can execute on this and we hit our metrics and we do a good job, which I have no doubt that we will, I think it sets ourselves up for additional investment down the road. You know, the juice isn't always worth the squeeze. You know, and so we've been cognizant of that over the years, because there's some grant opportunities that are out there. You know, we look at that and we say, well, this isn't the right one for us. You know, maybe it's, you know, the amount of money or the overhead or the time, or perhaps it's the number of outcomes is going to match what we would like to see. But I think if we do a good job, and obviously we want our Arkansas companies to get our fair share, but if we execute on this, I think it sets ourselves up well with DOL so that they have belief and faith in us that we can administer not just, you know, 35.8 million, but 138.8 million or 238 million or whatever the case may be. So yeah, and then the last thing I'll just mention is they've also changed kind of their model. You know, a couple of years ago, they started providing state apprenticeship expansion formula funds. So like each state gets a certain amount of formula, which Stephanie gets and others get, not a huge pot of money, but it's enough to do some things. I think we're focused on pre-apprenticeship, perhaps some staffing for us to do some expansion activities. So yeah, I think there is an opportunity for us, assuming we, you know, execute on our strategy, that we can see some additional investment down the road.
That's great.
Yep.
We've got 168 apprentices from Arkansas requested funding. So our partner Apprenticely, 10 companies, 168 apprentices. So pretty proud of that.
Yeah. And that's the value of an organization like an Apprenticely, right? It kind of operates in a capacity for us to really focus on expansion activities, not having to have that in-house and having an organization acting on behalf of us. You know, certainly we have some of our two-year college partners and four-year universities who sponsor apprenticeships, but they're really out there, you know, every single day, whether it's manufacturing, healthcare, IT. I'm sure they're involved in some other sectors too. They'll call me after this and tell me all the ones they're involved in. But they do a good job for us.
I think in longer term, just from a policy standpoint, I mean, we're getting a bird's eye view into a lot of different states and how they're applying this. So how are we pulling the best fruit from the vine and making sure that we can make improvements or changes to statute or funding or priorities so that I'm just thinking one of the advantages is just the learnings that we can derive from other states to be even better. Is there a concerted, intentional effort to get good learnings from all this?
Yeah, there is. And I think that goes back to some of the conversations we've had with some of our state counterparts. You know, I mentioned Virginia Works, Montana. We've had some conversations with Montana. We had a really good call not too long ago with the state of Iowa and Dane Solentic, who's actually the state that most recently transitioned to a state apprenticeship agency. And so, you know, they obviously, as we're, you know, kind of set aside the incentive fund grant for a second and kind of focus on our broader efforts from a policy perspective. You know, we're having some conversation with them around what were the landmines that you stepped on as you transitioned into the SAA world? What types of, collaborative meetings or visits or conversations can we have with your staff so that Derek and his team can really have a better lay of the land as it relates to when we get the keys to the kingdom on day one of becoming an SAA, and how we make sure that transition is seamless for our program sponsors and our employers around the state. I think the other thing too is like we have been, you know, gaining some insight as well as sharing our own with these states in which we're talking with. I had a great conversation with the state of Ohio the other day, who has the third most apprentices in the country. You know, I'll take their word for that. That's not my comment. So I'll caveat with that. If Brad's listening from Ohio, I'm going to take his word for it. But I think there's some things that we certainly can learn. Stephanie and team, I think, had a really good conversation with Virginia not too long ago. I know I've mentioned them a couple of times, but we're certainly interested in kind of how folks operate, how their funding streams are set up, how they support apprenticeships. Do they provide direct funding? Is it indirect funding? Do they really focus on the sponsor? Is it direct to business? And so, we do have a concerted effort, number one, to just, obviously execute on the fund, but two is to really take this as an opportunity to learn the landscape of apprenticeship within every state. We learned a really interesting dynamic that I won't get into here within the state of Iowa, in a situation that they have that they deal with that's through legislation and stuff like that. And I don't know that we want to replicate that, but it's certainly something that kind of opens the eyes. And I will say it kind of makes us think we're doing things pretty well. We can always continue to improve. And so we're certainly going to do that throughout this process.
I am proud of the work we do, and keep in mind that the reimbursements that we do for the RTI for these apprenticeships still would apply. So an employer who has a manufacturing apprenticeship and comes to us for expansion funds through the state funding would be able to get 75% of the cost of that RTI, in addition to the 3,500. So, we're actually stacking that. And that's something a lot of states don't necessarily have. We're proud of that. So there's two incentives for them to do this. It's not going to cost, they're going to pay 25 cents on the dollar for the apprenticeship training, plus get a $3,500 incentive fund.
The other thing that just hit me too is, we're pretty cognizant of the fact that, as much as we would like to think everyone's going to do the right thing, there's probably some people out there that might not. So we're going to be doing some data analysis on, how many apprentices once enrolled in the fund, how many of them make it to the 120-day mark, right? Number one, what's our conversion rate there? Number two is how many get canceled on day 91 or perhaps day 100? Once the incentive fund gets released, so that, we'll monitor to see if people are playing that game. And then we'll make some, tough and difficult decisions, as it relates to organizations that may have a trend of that. So, we've been making sure people understand that we're going to be looking at a lot of data, all of that data. And then again, the most important part is, are we growing the number of apprentices and the number of companies? I'm not as concerned about the number of programs per se, right? But do we have more apprentices? Do we have more employers leveraging it? And do they continue to do it after the incentive is gone? And I think part of that comes back to the state level discussions and why, when organizations are coming to us, we had one not too long ago, I think it was in the state of Illinois, and we said, well, who's our counterpart in Illinois for you guys? And they're like, well, we're not really sure. I was like, well, I would make sure that number one, you get to know them. I can provide you their contact info. We can get it for you and we can get you connected to them because, as it relates to long-term success for their own stuff in the state of Illinois or insert any state, right? It's, you have to build those relationships, and we certainly don't want to be the technical assistance center for the US. It may end up being an opportunity for us at some point, but, we want to make sure that those relationships are built locally, and we're making those connections as much as and as best as we can.
I want to make one other note here that a lot of the companies that we've seen so far in this first 50-ish applications are small companies. So, it's companies with 10 to 50 employees. Because, $3,500 to, say, Lockheed Martin is not as much as it is to Stephanie Isaacs Manufacturing. It's huge. So I'm really proud of the fact that these contracts that we have with our PR firm locally here in MHPSI, they got the word out so that small companies can take advantage of this. And that's something that we're monitoring. We want to see how many large companies, how many small companies are taking advantage of this, because it's really important that we make a mark on mom and pop businesses all over the United States.
And there's a lofty goal of getting to 1 million active apprentices. So this is one
10,000 and
effort, to help get to that level. And I think, if all the states and all these other grant opportunities that are going on out there with the mission that's been set forth, we'll see where we get, but we're happy to be a part of it. So we've obviously wanted to talk about this in past meetings, but things got pushed back or they weren't announced yet. And so we had to be cognizant of that. So I appreciate the patience of the board for, understanding that.
I know this is music to Mike and Senator English's ears, and we just appreciate the good work. Second, the thanks to Derek, and glad to see where we're going to be in a few years across our state, how employed, hopefully the adoption rate will be very significant, just be rich for our students.
I think it says a lot of, one more just, and then I promise I'll stop, but I think it just says a lot about the ecosystem, right? It's commerce in this, but it's also a lot of the apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship and the stuff that's going on through Learns Act at the K-12 level.
Yeah.
You know, the diplomas of distinction and diplomas of merit and the enrollments at career centers and,
Yeah.
you know, the work that B-Pro does and access and all the different aspects. You know, I think there's a lot of reasons why Arkansas was selected for this. And I think when you look at it in totality, I think it speaks volumes about our entire ecosystem here at the state level. And obviously that starts with the governor and comes down through the secretary level to us. So thank you.
Go to the other states, some that got the semiconductor, some that get the healthcare, or the different buckets besides the advanced manufacturing for Arkansas.
I'm not sure yet what those other buckets are. I mean, I know they put the 147 million. Is that what you're talking about? I mean, we would have the opportunity to go and apply for those funds similar to how they would apply for it to us. Is that what you're asking?
I just want to know what other announcements have been made in other focus
Color in
occupations,
Alabama.
Oh, you mean cooperative agreements or like sector wise?
sector.
I honestly, Mike, I'm not sure exactly. I'd have to go back and look at what that $147 million announcement was. We've been so knee deep in getting this thing off the ground that when I heard about that announcement, like I've actually had some other states reach out to me and call me and ask me like, hey, what's been your experience in this cooperative agreement method? And is it a benefit to you all? Is it not a benefit to you all? Because we're thinking about applying for this grant and we would love to administer it, but we're kind of curious, like, is there a benefit there? Is there a conflict there, right? So we've had some of those conversations, but we can get you a list of anything you want as it relates to maybe other sectors.
I get it. I just wanted to
Yeah,
kind of communicate the idea that it's not just advanced manufacturing, it's not just Arkansas, there's other states
yeah.
in this area. I'm curious though, are the traditional trades, the plumbing, electrical, are those eligible with the ONET code? So unions are not really part of the equation?
I mean, if they're a manufacturing business and they would be eligible, but if they're just electrical contractor, then they're.
Yeah, okay, that's what I want to clarify.
Comments or questions? Thank you. I appreciate you coming in. Thank you, sir. I think we'll move to our 7th agenda items regarding the line and hired.
You'll recall, thank you. So you'll recall that OSD is administering the ARPA funding, the American Rescue Plan Act funding, 25 million, line funding, and then the 48 million for the hired funding. And I'll let them introduce themselves, but each of these ladies are kind of project managing these grants, so I'll let them tell all about it.
Good morning, I'm Bonnie Casey, Associate Director of the Office of Skills Development and Project Manager for the Align Grant. Align, or Arkansas Linking Industry to Grow Nurses, is what I'll be speaking about today. So the Align's $25 million total in federal funding provided through the American Rescue Plan Act. This grant is designed to address one of Arkansas's most pressing workforce challenges, which is our persistent shortage of nurses. Through this program, OSD has awarded approximately $25 million to post-secondary institutions which offer RN and BSN programs, as well as the secondary area technical centers with LPN tracks. In order to leverage the state investment, grants awarded to colleges and universities were required to obtain a 2-to-1 healthcare partner match. What this essentially means is that our healthcare partners have contributed 33 cents for every $1 that's been budgeted for the line. The $25 million total investment was split into 2 parts. First was $20.4 million was awarded to nursing programs at 19 colleges and universities statewide. And the second track would be 4.6, which was awarded to the secondary area technical centers to support high school LPN pathways. Here you can see, pictures cut off a little bit, but this is a list of all the 19 colleges and universities that were given Align awards with their respective award amounts on the screen. Photo is actually of UAPB's nursing school. Just to kind of, I wanted to give you guys just some of the opportunities that our office receives to support the work and the mission. of office skills development. So PB was so excited to receive their funding that our office was actually invited to go and do the coin toss of their 2024 homecoming, which in Stephanie's absence, Carmen and I we're both Powell Bluff natives. We're happy to go into. So this right here is a list of our LPN awardees. The investment in high school programs was not accidental. This was a strategic investment to create early entry nursing pathways. And together with the higher education awards, this creates a more complete nursing pipeline statewide. And here, the Align Grant Awards were focused on 3 core areas: personnel, equipment, and scholarships. This is designed to increase capacity and move towards more nurses into the workforce. The photo on the screen is a sim lab. I wanted to show this because more than anything else, this is what we received the most requests for as far as equipment would have been sim labs and mannequins. Unfortunately, while it just left, but one of the actual most impressive ones that we were able to tour was at NWAC. And these mannequins are able to simulate many medical situations for nursing students, including giving birth. So there's literally a mannequin that can simulate birth, which is very important. Reimbursement. All Align funding is reimbursement based. To date, just under 11 million or 53% of Align has been reimbursed. LPN reimbursements total just over 2 million or 45%. We believe the current spending levels align with the program timeline and the final reimbursement deadline of December 31st of this year. Any remaining funds, however, at that time must be returned to the federal government. So we are doing all of our due diligence to avoid that. In order to avoid returning federal funds, OSD monitors expenditures and performs site visits. These site visits verify sim lab progress, large equipment purchases, ensuring projects are on time and on track. Additionally, in the late spring, OSD will review any large unspent balances and reallocate the funding between the existing grantees if necessary. We had a meeting in September just to kind of touch base with all our grantees, and everyone assured both Stephanie and I that they will be spending all of their funding. I think we did solve some procurement delays that some of the colleges and universities have been having, and they were also able to collaborate with each other at that meeting. So I think we've gotten ahead of it, and all funding will be spent. In order to assure compliance and accountability, Align grant recipients are required to submit quarterly reports, which reconciles their 2-to-1 healthcare match. So for all the reimbursements already received, they have to give us proof that they have received the same in private funding. We also require that they send annual outcomes to our reports to our office. In closing, Align is a strategic, well-managed investment in Arkansas's healthcare workforce. Align dollars are not short-term training dollars. Instead, the Align program is focused on removing long-standing barriers in nursing education. Overall, the program is on track, risks are managed, and OSD is focused on full utilization of the funds. To summarize, Align represents a strategic investment that aligns strongly with the board's mission of strengthening Arkansas's workforce, supporting employers, and building talent pipelines, in healthcare for the future of Arkansas. I'll take any questions.
So Bonnie did mention that we met with so there were 19 recipients. We met with them in September, and at that time, we weren't even really close to 50%. And so I said, we're gonna reallocate if you haven't spent your money. So who in here thinks you can't spend your money? And some of them spent like 10%, and they all raised their money, they can spend every dime. So what I told them is that you can spend it, that's your plan. But if you don't, in late spring, meaning in May, we'll be out, I'm going to reallocate it on their behalf. Because they always think they can spend it, but it doesn't always happen. And so also, I think there was an important lesson here, and Bonnie kind of alluded to it. There were different outcomes that people were after. Some people just wanted to retain more. So they wanted to hire more people to help support nurses in their journey from LPN to BSN. So they needed, they needed that support or just to keep them in the program long enough to get them all the way through. Some people said, well, if you give us more money, we could offer more classes and put out more nurses. So really, I hope by maybe fall of next year that we would have all of them come before you and say, here was our base level nurses that we had before this thing began, and here is what we were able to do with this line funding, because that's ultimately what it's about, getting more nurses into the workforce. So that's gonna be sort of the measurement. Right now, we're trying to get the money out the door. But the measurement ultimately is, did we do what we set out to do? Did we produce more nurses with a $25 million investment? So that's something that I think is key, and I want this board to hear. I won't be able to hear that probably until late fall, so. Good job.
Yeah, and if I can, Bonnie, just kind of picking up on that, and maybe it's premature, but do we have a view on rates of retention, completion, and is one of the outcomes or measures of feedback from employers, hospitals, medical care providers, or is the outcome serving the ultimate outcome with employment?
Well, that's part of the purpose of private funding match, private partners, was that they agree to hire these people once they have, in fact, completed the RSN or BN program. Center honor program.
And so Mercy was a great partner.
Yeah.
And so they actually have people in their nurses and their staff are doing some of the teaching. And they were a recipient along with NWAC and UAFS of quite a lot of SIP equipment, over $2 million. So in order to access that $2 million, Mercy had to put in $1 million of their own money. And so we do have employers, but I think it's gonna be interesting, and I can't wait to see what the outcomes are at the end of this thing.
But they seem satisfied so far.
So far, I mean, I would say it's almost too early to tell.
Yeah.
With some of the procurement delays and hiring that we have.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm Renee Doty, the Office of Skills Development. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives here at the agency, and I am in charge of the Hired Grant Track 2 project. I wanted to give you just a really brief progress report today. Wanted to let you know the overall purpose of the Hired Grants, the types of projects that we've funded, where we are currently in terms of financial status, how OSD is ensuring strong oversight and accountability for these projects. The Hired Grant represents one of the largest investments that the state of Arkansas has made in workforce development to date. The goal of the project is to support strategic employer-driven workforce solutions that align with the governor's workforce strategy. Unlike traditional training programs, Hired is really focused on creating step change improvements. Many projects are expected to move the needle in a meaningful way for Arkansas's workforce, particularly in industries where the state has both current demand and long-term potential. The emphasis is not just on training for training's sake, but on ensuring that training directly connects real jobs with real employers and mitigates real workforce shortages, and particularly in high demand areas. In 2024, requests for proposals were issued by the state of Arkansas for Arkansas workforce development funding opportunities. The Hired Grant was developed into two different tracks. Track 1 is being administered by the Department of Higher Education and funded with state funds. Hired Grant Track 2 is administered at the Office of Skills Development, and we are utilizing, much like the Align Grant, federal ARPA money, which is one-time COVID money that was given to the state of Arkansas for pandemic recovery. I'll get into why that difference is important for how this grant is going to be flowing in the next couple slides. So what is the Hired Grant? The Office of Skills Development is again directing this Track 2 Workforce Strategy Grant. We received $48 million for the funding appropriation for federal ARPA funds. The time to expend these funds, since they are federal CARES funds, is December 31st, 2026. So in consideration of proposals that we received for this track 2 project, these needed to be projects that could feasibly move pretty quickly within a 2-year time frame. The higher grant projects also really needed to demonstrate that there was a strong collaborative effort with both Workforce Alliance partners and community stakeholders. There was priority given to projects that are in the following industry categories: advanced manufacturing, information technology, life sciences, emerging technology sectors such as lithium, and energy infrastructure and utilities. These particular categories were chosen based on labor market data, information that we received from employers, and potential that we have in Arkansas economic development long-term priorities. The purpose of the hire grant has several facets. I think one of the largest one is to really reduce the barriers to hiring and training new workers, whether those barriers are cost to training, whether it's just simply access to training or possibly capacity to train enough people that are in demand within the workforce currently. They'll align workforce training with industry needs and support economic growth and talent development. We want to encourage collaboration and again, you're going to hear employer-led training a lot, but we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our industries right now and also for future workforce goals. So we mentioned in response to the request for proposals that we had in 2024, we received 25 proposals with a request for over $100 million in funding. So as we received $48 million of appropriated funds from the federal government, this was a very competitive grant process. We ultimately awarded 19 grant recipients. All of these projects are unique. Unlike the line, we have some that are focused on the lithium industry, some that are focused on apprenticeships, some that are focused on cybersecurity degrees. They're all very different. But as with the line, we have a stopwatch that started in November 2024 and is going to end at December 31st, 2026. And like with the line, any unexpended funds will go back to the federal government. So that is something that we're working very hard to keep our grantees on track to make sure that we don't waste this opportunity of this one-time funding. Give you a snapshot of where we are currently in terms of, we're 14 months out into this program. Give you a snapshot of where we are in terms of how much money has been dispersed. Of the $48 million grants that we reported, we've expended approximately $20.8 million. This represents about 43%. And at this point in our grant process, this is good progress. Many of the Align grants had to do some due diligence beforehand before they could start to incur eligible costs such as renovating a building, maybe doing some procurement, some things that they had to do before they could really ramp up and start spending our funds. OSD is really focused on program oversight and accountability. Like with the Align grants, every one of our 19 grantees signed an MOU with us that outlines budget categories and eligible expenses. It also identifies the dates for quarterly reporting that are due to our office. But we want to keep an overview of where they all are with the milestones that they said that they would set for us. Funds are distributed on a reimbursement-based model to help ensure that funds are spent appropriately and the budget categories that align with the programs that we sign the MOUs with. This is also a great way to safeguard state funds. Having said that, some of our high grantees are smaller organizations. We have some that are pros at managing federal and state grants. We also did not want to ensure that having to pay for these upfront, some smaller organizations would cause a cash flow issue. So we have had a couple of instances where we've had a grantee call us and say, I'm about to send you a $1.2 million equipment invoice and my CFO is breathing into a paper bag. So if we let them know if that happens, we don't want to cause you a crunch and a cash flow situation. So we'll try to expedite as quickly as possible. And we have done that for a few grantees so far, and they've all been very appreciative of us being able to work with them and be flexible with them because they all are very unique. We provide ongoing technical assistance to them. Again, some of these are really small organizations and the hand-holding has been a little bit more in some areas than other. But we want to make sure that if these grantees are incurring any challenges along the way, that we know about them early, we can eliminate them early, because we certainly do not have any time to waste with 10 months left in this grant. We've been traveling to visit our grantees, and this picture is from Phillips County. That piece of equipment was purchased with hired funds, and it is on site and ready to go. And we'll continue to monitor them for the remaining of the grants. And I'll wrap up with that picture from our grant announcement day, where we gave everybody the big checks, and you might recognize some of the fine folks in that particular picture. Those of you that you may not recognize, that is Harding University. This hired grant has been one of the largest grants that Harding has received in their history. And we're very, very proud of that group of people. So just to wrap up, Hired again represents one of the largest investments in Arkansas workforce to date. Each MOU is unique, and Hired Track 2 award has been Hired Track 2 awarded $48 million of state federal ARPA funds to 19 grantees that support employer-driven, high-impact workforce projects that align with the governor's workforce strategy and with state economic development priorities. The first year is complete, and we have expended 43% of our funds. Overall, grantees are making really good progress to complete in a 2-year tight timeline. OSD is closely monitoring our reimbursements to ensure they meet eligibility and funding goals, as well as to provide technical assistance to keep grants on track. Our sites visits have been going great so far, and I've been very impressed with what I've seen from our projects to date. We look forward to coming back in about a year after we've completed the grant project to give you more of an update of what the final outcomes were for these projects. So I know that was pretty quick, and I'll go back to the slide. I'll go back to the slide that has the breakdown. I'm happy to take any questions for you I have today about some of these grants that we're working on. Or if you want to catch me later or send me an email, if you have a particular one, if you want to have questions answered about, just, I'm available. You have my email and phone address. Just let me know.
I think just kind of put you on the spot. That's the slide I wanted to look at.
Yeah.
If you had to kind of call out 2 or 3 that are really knocking it out of the park, and the 2 or 3 that need to make up some time in improvements.
I would say that the majority of my grants are really, if they're not on schedule, they're ahead of schedule. We really just have 1 or 2 that I have concerns about of whether or not that realistically they're going to be able to spend some of their grant awards, and we've been in discussion with it. And as we move a little forward through the grant process, just like with Align, if it looks like they're not going to be able to expend those funds in a timely manner, then we will talk to them about reallocating them. But some of our rock stars have really been Harding University, which has created a digital forensics lab. If you've not heard about the things that they're doing there, you will soon. This digital forensics lab has the same accreditation as the Associated Crime Lab, and they are doing phenomenal things. They're really, really proud of it. We're hoping to have some of our grantees come and speak to you. I know we've already had NWTI here talking about their refrigeration program. So we're hoping to kind of carve out some times where they can kind of talk about their individual projects. But they're really across the board. We have Arkansas Construction Education Foundation, which is installing diesel equipment, machinery, training equipment, heavy equipment for, and also developing a new facility. Ouachita Baptist has created a cybersecurity degree, which already in their first year has 12 majors and programs that are being taken by 56 other students in coursework. Baptist College is creating the Farm Project, which is developing an agricultural degree at that location, as well as building a new poultry house, which is completely and fully automated. So it's a very modern agriculture. ASU Jonesboro, these funds will go to the development of the new press building, We brought in those $7.5 million. Obviously, that's not going to cover all the costs, but it will cover some of the construction contracts that we have.
And I think that's an important note. So we have three programs in three grants here that were building projects. So one of them was ASU Jonesboro, one of them was National Park, and one of them was ASU Three Rivers. All of them are building a brand new building. So they have large grant awards, but you know, in the process of getting everything approved and getting architectural drawings, that money's not going out the door very quickly, but once it does, it's gonna it's gonna go out in 1 month. So sometimes when I look at the outstanding balance, my heart beats a little bit faster, but then I have to remember that, you know, over $20 million. I will say, and I know this is a public meeting, but Mike and I have visited SAU Tech. They had a $5 million award, and they have not been able to expend as quickly as we think, and we are pushing them. As you know, there's some very important partners in the Highland Park area there for aerospace and defense. I just had a call with them yesterday to say, what are you doing? We need to move faster. And so just know that we are monitoring this on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to discuss a tertiary benefit that came out of nowhere, because we were trying to make wise investments to reward and drive the needle and provide a catalyst for change. Next week on the 17th, Walnut Ridge, Williams Baptist, and BRTC are signing an MOU, which I think is fascinating. They were seeing public-private agreements with with one of the 9 independent 2-year schools. Is there 7 now? And an independent 4 years private. Seeing those things are all, it's not, I can't link it directly to this, but the communications and the collaboration is just starting to really steamroll. And that was part of the intent of the investments.
Mike, I think you can link it to this because, you know, Renee, Bonnie, and myself, we went to Williams Baptist, and they were so thankful for this award, and they said, how can we do more work? So we really began talking to them about, you know, workforce outside of their degrees. And of course, Ouachita Baptist, Williams, Harding, they all want to do 4-year degrees. Don't get me wrong. They want to do 4-year degrees, but they see the value through this higher grant program, and applaud the governor's office and you, Mike, for really driving this thing and making it open to some of these private partners who for the first time had a chance at getting state dollars to do great workforce training. So I would put it back on this Williams Baptist Black River to this.
Williams Baptist is really unique in that they've developed this working farm where they have their students from William Works that are actually working on these farms and getting degree credit and offsetting some of their tuition. In addition, they have partnerships with retailers where, you know, they have a poultry house, but they're also selling the eggs to retailers and providing a little bit of an extra income stream.
It's got a revenue model.
This program that we are funding through Hired has been sustainable within the first year.
The same way with Harding University. So they're going to be able to do contracts with state crime lab to actually do jobs for them. And so they're going to keep driving revenue. Just a really unique program. The governor's office is going to be making a visit to Harding in the very coming days, along with Secretary Hagar. And so we're excited for that project as well. So again, hats off to, and Mike was really behind this project. We met a long time to decide where to put these funds. So
I still have bruises.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have to give credit to Mike for kind of driving this thing along with the governor's office, and we're proud to get to be a part of this.
Yeah, thank you, Renee. Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate you all's, I know a lot of oversight, a lot of phone calls, a lot of follow-up, but well done. We appreciate it. I believe the last item is you stepping director's report.
You know, I don't have anything. As you can see, I don't do this alone. I have a great staff who that we all work together. And so you heard about the big thing I wanted you to take away was this DOL grant that we're overseeing. And I encourage all of you, I've talked to Butch since he's in Searcy about maybe possibly going on that visit with the governor's office to Harding. any of you that see opportunities for you to be involved in meetings with any of these hired or aligned grants, we want you to be involved. We want your input. Because we are not SMEs here at OSD. We're looking at making sure that the funding is spent like it's supposed to be. But we really value all of your input into any of these projects. So I don't have anything else today. Did we get in under 2? I always want to get under 2 hours.
We do always want to kind of open the floor to any ex officio members, any comments or questions or compliments.
I want to offer a compliment. Obviously, it's phenomenal work with
Yeah.
just some great efficiency. Unsolicited, Arkansas put out we saw labor force participation record set 2 weeks ago. That was not something that we were trying to get to in the first 3 years of this term, but we're not even really in our stride yet. With all of the work combined across the state, that we've already started to see what I think is one of the best metrics that we could have anticipated after the first term, that we're already getting in that stride. So record set since 2012. We've never seen as many people in Arkansas working as we have today.
That's awesome. That really is.
Yeah, I agree. I was meeting with the two separate companies, 2 separate parts of the state, and great opportunities for the state of Arkansas, but they have to have skilled employees. We hear it every week. So you all everyone in this room, you're on the tip of the spear. Everything you're doing is making a difference for our state, our economy, and our future. So thank you. Well, is there any other comments? Entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, we are.
Lunches across the hall. We have box lunches today in case you can't stay and eat it. So grab some lunch before you leave. Yeah, and everybody's to sign this. So, you know,
Yeah.
Got a really good poker face. I kept watching her reactions. I want to see which way it goes. Like, I can't tell if she's going to full deck or what.
That was wrong. It's 8. I just counted at 8.